who feels free, who
Mhm.
feels free to, say what they think about it. But um, I sometimes trying to ask the deeper question of like the left and about the left and right brain. So it's like the right is the creative, right? So isn't that the feminine? And then the left is like the analytical, which would be the masculine. I mean, this is what I've kind of gotten through, things I've studied, but I just, because I actually, I don't know if you guys know, um, have you heard of Howard Stephen Berg?
I have not.
He's like in the Guinness Book of World Records, the fastest speed reader. I actually met him. So he talked about left and right brain. You could do exercises to have them more in sync.
Hmm.
So I used to practice those exercises with my ex-husband, but um, because that's the key, really. I think when you come here on the physical plane, the key is to be balanced. What right with those two, with the two sides. I'm correlating it to the divine masculine and feminine kind. I'm not sure, but that's what's kind of coming to me. I don't
I feel there's
I
a
don't know if there's
parallel there.
anything. Yeah,
And I also agree with you in that we're trying to find what balance works best for us, the balance in it. And myself, because I guess of how growing up in, I find I'm trying to find a balance as close to the middle as possible. And that's just for myself and be as balanced in that. And that's not everybody's case. There's going to be men that end up more on the masculine, men that end up more on the feminine, and maybe have a counterpart that is balanced in that can also, yeah. And that's kind of why I wanted to watch what was going on, because are we supposed to, as a male, am I supposed to go to a divine masculine? I mean, that's you,
right.
am I supposed to shift to that side or not? And not that there's a supposed to in any realm in that. Go ahead, Sarah. Let's hear your thoughts, feelings on it.
Yeah, this really inspires me, but I feel like we have both qualities in us. We have both male and we have female, a man and a woman, a mother and a father, right? And it's marrying the two and also learning how to dance with somebody else, right? They also have those parts. Maybe a woman sometimes is a little bit more masculine in certain areas, and that's where the divine masculine can take a seat back and watch her flow through that. And then there's also the time where the woman can sit back and let the divine feminine flow through the man. I think it's just an equal balance and learning how to communicate and dance with that and allowing people to have the space to be able to do those things, right? Like if somebody loves cooking but they don't want to do it all the time, they're going to end up having somebody else do that with them, so I think it's a dance, and I think it's about allowing yourselves to shine in certain areas. I don't think it's supposed to be just one rigid way. Like, no, I'm a masculine, I'm only going to stay a masculine. I think it's a dance.
I feel that as well, that it is that balance. And even within that balance, you're going to be on one side or the other spectrum, and finding that. I think the key, where you said, was the communication of it. When we can be open and communicate where we are in whatever situation or experience, then the other person can respond ably, not just stay out of the way, let whoever flow or whatever. So, uh, yeah, from what you just stated, that key part to it is the communication within that relationship. What's happening, Yannick? What's happening, John? You guys are doing well today. Yannick, you got your hand up, brother. You can feel free, man.
Yeah, yeah. I missed the earlier one because somehow I got your class mixed up in my mind with Sarah's class, and then I'm like, okay, I'm in Facebook, and then I'm like looking through Facebook, like no, and then Messenger, and then on and on. Then oh, I went to my calendar as but anyway, so I missed the beginning of it. But I think the one of the things that and I kind of always have a far away stare, when I'm thinking. So, um, you know, it's kind of like the Ancient of Ways, actually. But rather than focusing on individual things, I'm trying to I'm taking everything in, um, except for I'm looking further ahead. So what in my this came up. It's like, basically as an infant coming into this world, and I've gone and unpacked a lot of this stuff and felt, unpacked meaning gone through feeling fully. There's just terror, and that's where, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but uh, one of the things that the spirit revealed to me is like the okay, the father is like the covering of love. So obviously, you know, women, can certainly learn martial arts and defend themselves, and um, but they're also charged with essentially taking care of the children and raising the children. It's like, okay, I can't take a 2-year-old baby that's going to cry, and if I'm out in a hunt, trying to stalk animals. So the covering of love, the keeping the land safe, because we're the living dirt, right? This is the living dirt here while I'm on this planet, in this consciousness before I pass on to the other side. I'm just passing through. But mothers are, and neurobiology is showing us this. Women are wired much more for relationship and giving and receiving, communication and love, and certainly there's and I've felt that because I couldn't bring that to my mother because she couldn't bring what I needed to me. Um, uh, but the giving and receiving. So like picture, in a native tribe, the women basically were in charge of the camp. Now that's not to say that women couldn't learn, to become shaman. It's all based on your spiritual and your persona. Or not necessarily persona, but what's behind the persona. Because um, so giving and receiving of love, and then the son is literally the one that looks at God. Anything else is false feminine. It's feminine to me, because this is just the dirt, and the spirit revealed to me that the earth is the woman. So the seed of the woman is simply the fallen man that can't that's stuck in the consciousness of the flesh, and only seeing here and getting and just doing everything they can to get what I can in this life. And and that's the way they've arranged it for us, while they just keep adding more commas and more zeros behind the ones that they have on their computer screen. That's conservatism right there. It's all for me and none for you, and you're just a commodity, and whatever, I don't care. So anyway, I guess I could tie a lot of this in, but we've ravaged the earth. I mean, there's no stream that's. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but anyway, but the divine feminine is basically this physical body, and the scriptures say that, may and may, or Jesus said, may they be one as you and I are one. And he was talking to the true divine, the Father, the covering of love, and the giving and receiving of love. That's just a tiny little bit of it, but the Holy Spirit, that's where there's so much in the natural realm. I mean, and it's literally like the atom. I'm sorry, the proton and the electron, but it's reversed, possibly. Because this is my body, but I have like basically an aura, and people will talk about soul and whatnot. I can't see those, so I'm not going to go. There's a whole lot I could learn, and a lot that I've forgotten over the 3 decades. But
All
anyway,
right.
I'm rambling. I'm rambling.
I appreciate the share, man. And so, yeah, we'll leave it at that. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you very much for that share. And John, you have anything on the divine? That's kind of the reference of what we had earlier on was divine masculine, divine feminine. You're muted, brother.
You're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I came in late. I'm out of integrity, so sorry. I learned that last night.
So
Not
we don't
not
accept your sorry.
really. That the divine masculine, divine feminine is still kind of a foreign concept to me. I'm still getting the gist of it, so I really don't have anything to really add on to that because I don't understand it all that well.
Well, appreciate your honesty on that, man. And it's something that's been foreign to me, and I'm in the process of learning, absorbing information, and that's why we started speaking of it, because that's the reason why I canceled class last week, because it's something that we're specifically speaking to here at the village, and where like different people are, males are in a feminine role compared to the female being in the male role, and trying to rotate those dynamics. And where does that transition those dynamics and that divine masculine, divine feminine, where are we supposed to be on that spectrum? And I don't think there really is a true answer to that. It's just maybe what works in that regards. And yeah, like Sarah was speaking to, some may be on one side of this, a male may be on the feminine in certain experiences or certain situations, compared to the female being in a divine masculine role in some situations as well. So
I think,
man, it's all a learning process. We're all teachers and students in this, man.
to me, it seems like one of those things is like, okay, this is a theory to get behind, and you can start understanding the theory, but in practicality, how does it apply? It's like, understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that actually. That's I feel a perfect description of kind of where it is, where we are currently, or at least where I am. You have something, Sophia?
I was just gonna say, like, my understanding of it before I started Earth Waking, like, was because I felt like I kind of took on like this, I would say masculine role, but I always felt like I had to be independent. I think my dad kind of instilled that in me, like becoming independent. And so that was my notion of becoming independent. Like, you know what I mean? Like he always talked about that with me, and go to college, become independent, So I think that I took on that role kind of early on. And so that's the reason why I was like, well, I want to make my own money. And then I felt like that also kind of turned into a control thing, where I felt like, well, if I make my own money, then nobody can really control me, right? So that was maybe slightly toxic. I don't know, masculine energy. So I kind of went years like that, but I was in circumstances where I had to, obviously becoming a mother and all that, I became much more feminine. And what's really odd is that earlier in my life, I had this thing with women where I didn't have that many female friends. Almost all my friends are male. Like I gravitated toward male energy, like male friends. I was more comfortable with them. That was before I had my children. And I had very few female friends at the time, but the friends I had that were female were very good friends. So I remember I made a shift when I had my kids, and it was like complete opposite. I went from like gravitating toward male friends to like gravitating toward mothers, right, and females, and like I maybe there was that common bond, like, oh, we had babies, you know, like that nurturing side, you know, that came out from me. Like once I became a mother, really brought out my feminine like a lot more. So I noticed a shift with that. And then when I entered a relationship with my ex-husband, I kind of felt like he was trying to at the time I didn't think it was toxic, but in a toxic way, turn me into this feminine, you know, counterpart, where I became uncomfortable with becoming the extreme feminine, right? Because that was actually, you know, well, extreme feminine also in a toxic way, because he also tried to isolate me and just, you know, and then I didn't have any like independence at all, right? So for when I was younger, it was instilled in me, the independence part. And so I didn't feel independent. And so then I felt like that wasn't working for me either. So I do feel like I do feel the importance of like even within yourself, even if you're having a relationship with yourself, having that divine and feminine balance, right? So like I've been on my own for almost 5 years. So I've been having to be divine feminine. Well, I don't know if divine feminine masculine, but the like balance of masculine feminine, because I have to, you know, I make the bacon, I cook the bacon, you know, whatever the saying is. I bring home bacon and I cook it. And then you know, and then I like have to do handyman work. And then sometimes I just get like tired because I have to be both. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find that saying. Oh yeah, you had it. Bring home the bacon and cook it. That's it.
Yeah. Bring home the bacon and then cook the bacon, make the bacon or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So I had to be both. And it was like, now it's like, yes, I was so like elated, like, yeah, I get to be independent, you know, away from my ex. But then after time goes by, I'm like, but he was doing so much stuff that you know, like, I think that was the one, I would say the one good aspect of the relationship, that, you know, he used to carry all the heavy things. And I mean, pretty much he used to do a lot of things around the house, you know, and now it's like, oh, now I have to like do things around the house. And if something you know, if I have to put a shelf on the wall or whatever.
So that it kind of turned into a codependent relationship at that point. Is it?
I guess so. I feel like I was so
I'm only inquiring. I feel like it's kind of on that space.
like I wasn't to my femininity, but he wanted me to be extreme. And to the point where, I know it's going to sound weird, but to the point where he wanted me to be like we were in our past life together, because he claimed we had a past life together. And he, so, and my name in the past life was Danielle Dutch. So he wanted me to braid my hair like Danielle Dutch. And it came to a point where like, I don't want to braid my hair like Danielle Dutch. That's not me anymore, right? So like extreme feminine to where I would just submit and do everything he wanted me to do. And that is not healthy either, right? So I know it just sounds like a little bit off a little bit, but anyway, that's what I wanted to say about it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. What was that, Deb?
What?
What's your nickname, Debbie?
Danielle Dutch. So supposedly,
Danielle Dutch.
he told me that we met in a past life in the 1700s, and his name was Edward, right? And supposedly he saved me from being raped, and he sacrificed his life. So ever since then, he's been jumping from life to life to try and find me, you know, and that was the story. I mean, it was very romantic, but then after a while, I was thinking, did he make that up? because he is histrionic. He has a histrionic disorder. So, but the whole thing with the braids, like he wanted me to put braids, like the French braid in my hair. He wanted me constantly to go up and tell him how much I loved him and I'm madly, crazy, stupidly in love with you. And then I tried that for a little bit, but then he wouldn't respond. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? Are you just trying to like control me or make me submit or what it was a toxic situation, but it was comical looking back, but you know.
Live stream it. Should have live streamed it, turned it into a show. Thank you, Sarah, for your patience. Now that we know it's Danielle Dutch.
I was
Dodge.
watching the live show right here. I love
and
you.
he would actually change his voice to back then. It was very like I really believed it. I mean, I still don't know to this day if it's true. If we really had a past life together, and we might have, but I don't know if that.
Does that sound like you have normal conversations with people in Walmart about their past lives? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I mean, come on. It's like,
I mean, it wasn't the first conversation we had. Like it took a couple months or so, 2 or 3 months for him to say that. But then he would talk about the days of old and his voice would switch and to you know like what?
That sounds like schizophrenia.
Yeah, it's multi-personality disorder. I figured it out after, like, yeah, I came to the conclusion of that, but
I'm not laughing.
You want to know what makes you really, 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 really like just very interesting way of putting things in this world when we just don't understand something. We label it as something wrong or a disorder or something. And
right.
I'm going to tell you this, call me whatever you want to call it, but lots of different meditations, I've seen things and I can't explain them. And I'm not even going to begin to try to, because it's out of this world. And so I think what we do is we try to label something either good, bad, right, or wrong when we don't understand something about what somebody's going through cognitively or a download about what it is that they're experiencing. And I think all that we really truly want is to feel love and to be loved in return. You know, and when somebody's open enough to allow someone to express themselves for whatever it is that they're experiencing in their life, that's when true love can exist. I think the balance between the feminine and the masculine energy needs to be at play. I think that the feminine is allowing us to turn inward to examine the things that are looping in our minds and heal all the wounding that causes us to repeat things. And I think it's also to show us how we've been neglecting the truth to guide us towards our heart. And I think the masculine is there to provide us with the will or the drive or the strength and to release the patterns as well. And like he's the one that's supposed to like take you by the hand and encourage you to release those things that are not best interest for this world or for you guys' destiny. And when the two come into union together, when the energies merge together, that brings true ultimate freedom. Because we have to have people, we have to have two to create, right? So if you need two to create, you need two to create anything. So when those merge, finally, you have true freedom and balance to be able to create what God wants you to have. That's what I believe.
Thank you very much for that, Sarah. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Thank you. It was very inspired by all of this. So, love you guys.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention, since it has to do with my story, that I did see a show after, I don't know, a couple of years went by, maybe a year went by on television and it was about this woman. Her name was Trudy, and she had multi-personality disorder. And she identified with about, I don't know, 25 personalities. She was on an old Oprah show, and a clip came up, and it was meant for me to see it. And then I saw how she was she told her story about how she was physically abused as a child, and the only way for her to escape that in that moment of the physical abuse and sexual abuse was to become another personality. So I feel that that's what happened to him. Whether the past lives are real or not, I don't completely know to this day. Maybe yes, maybe no. But I do, whatever she said was talking about kind of resonated with me, and it correlated to, I felt, to him. And then I just had like this overwhelming compassion for him at that moment in time. It doesn't mean that I have to be with him, right? But I felt like an overwhelming compassion for him, that he did go through sexual abuse and physical abuse, and maybe that's what happened. And that's how he coped. So anyway.
Thank you very much for that. And there's been somebody staying at the village that I forget exactly, like watched they went to daycare when they were a kid, and they were like abducted and watching like satanic rituals, and in that process they became like seven different personalities, and she had names for each one of those personalities, and so her whole world was fragmented into 7 worlds, and would play all those different parts. And so, I think just recently she went through a hot seat and um, saw her actual little girl for the first time, which was in a cage, and like inside, like because of that same experiences. So I feel like there's a correlation there. Maybe that could be the sexual abuse aspect of it, but that we fragment ourselves to protect ourselves at that, and say, all right, well, that's not truly me. I'm creating this other persona for this situation experience. And that's exactly what our work is here, is being able to go in and rescue that child inside um, that we've hidden underneath of 7 other created personalities or such. So yeah, I
Well,
feel like
think
there's
about Inside Out. That reminds me of that movie Inside Out, with all of the different little emotions. There's angry, there's sad, there's disgust, there's, scared, and then there's joy. And there's all of those like 5 little personalities working inside of the body for the little girl that is playing the role. And it's just a really beautiful way of describing it, because when one takes over, it's all for protection. The one that's fearful, the one that's trying to protect you, is like, no, 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 stop your body, like, don't do this. You're about ready to hit a brick wall, you know. So it's there, but I think it's the understanding of it. And we want to know what God knows, and we're trying to take over that role of God, when we just need to trust him that he's got us and that we're moving in his design. That's the biggest thing, I think, now as adults, is to free that child from all of those things that we tried to protect it with.
Well said.
So not just the understanding. So I would say it would be like the understanding aspect of it and awareness of those. When you can start having awareness of it and seeing these personalities pop up when you're triggered, in essence, from something in that vein. And I've kind of looked at it as like my round table. Like those are all my different personalities hanging out at the table with me, like, or feelings, I guess, or emotions, that this motion pops up when I'm feeling this. And I've taken that into my music, and I'll sing different things according to maybe this different emotion that I was feeling. This line is an angry line, so I'm going to sing it from my angry persona, to emphasize that emotion that is actually behind it, and have a raspiness or an anger within that. So having I haven't gone and named each one of those different musicians that can play those parts, but I want to do that, and it'll be just my own little round table band.
We should have a class on that. Can we please? Let's all name our little parts.
You put the, and you know, chords have different feelings too. Steven knows this. Chords have different feelings too. You've got happy chords, you got sad chords. I mean, you know, the different notes, each note kind of portrays its own emotion going to it. So when you start writing a happy song, you may want to do it in D.
Yeah.
You want to do a sad song, you may put it in E minor or A minor.
But what about if you sing in a happy voice, but you have a sad chord, just so you can make the sad song happy?
B minor.
So I don't think I've ever shared this with anyone, but I had, like, my earliest memories are probably pretty close to when I turned 5, and it's because of the suffering. But I had like a long history of recurring nightmares. Like I had I had nightmares constantly. And there were 2 of them that I had, and one was basically represented essentially the fallen masculine, my father, and the other was the fallen feminine, you know, divided, if you will, the feminine, and you know, and the spirit brought me back to those things as I was going through my own, you know, I don't know what, you know, this, my eyes have been opened. So, you know, but you gotta find the meaning in things. So anyway, I'm rambling. I'm off track. The and John talks about the structure. I was always like sneaking around, like everything's black, but there's like purple lines where like walls, and I'm sneaking around walls, and then there's a big lake and a huge castle that I could see off in the distance. And you know, tall, and you know, kind of almost like a monolith, but you know, blocky, square, you know, square. And there were gargoyles, which, you know, basically sitting up on top, and every now and again I would sneak up, and I would, you know, get close to essentially my father, who's just like this big black ball of suffering. You know, which I couldn't have told you that that's what that meant until, you know, just a few years ago. So he was in his suffering, but what he built, the structure that he created, by his choices, his, you know, because we're the intersection for the spirit and the flesh. By his choices, he created suffering. And on the flip side, and Stephen, this might take you back to Maryland. You know, my earliest memories are from the neighborhood on basically the edge of the sprawl at that point, as far as I could tell, of Washington D.C., because it seems like once you came through the front entrance of our subdivision, which, you know, connected to another subdivision, and on and on and on, it was basically like a kind of rolling hills and cornfields. And I would have this, so that black and purple, and then the feminine is like basically like rolling. It's like the fall. It's always like gray and like, but it's all in sepia tone. It's always like gray and windy and overcast, and you know, the crop is dead. You know, it's a fall, you know, front of sorts, and it's, you know, the clouds are low, and
Are you in
anyhow,
Kansas, Yannick?
huh?
Florida.
I'm like, are you in Kansas?
Oh,
N-
Or are you not in
no.
Kansas anymore?
I caught the joke.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, that's an aside because you're uncomfortable, perhaps, but anyway, I'll leave it at that. And anyway, then I had that was so the first one was my father, the fear of my father, and the fear of my mother was who was always trying to get her needs met by me, who I couldn't do that as an infant. Like, that there's that cultural norm of, women have to have kids because other, and the culture says, oh, you're not a woman until you have kids, and all this blah 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 bullshit. It's like, you know, the human race is more going to expire if you do have kids than if you don't have kids, and you lay your life down like Jesus and Paul to do something about it. But anyway, and that's kind of like, I'm sorry, I got a little bit over anxious on that statement, but anyway, I've never had kids, but um, I didn't want to, and I couldn't have told you this, but I didn't want to extend the suffering. You have to have your eyes. I have to have my eyes open to be able to do something about it. And so anyway, another thing that we're kind of like divided and lost. Jesus talked about separate, shattered hearts. So like a part of me is lost in the forest, as basically like an infant, and there could be other parts. There's other parts that the infant is turned into. But then there's a hermit, an old hermit he's bound to protecting that, and that for me is the masculine, and then the feminine is like, hey, and this came up this morning. I couldn't get it, but I wanted to hear the Who, see me, feel me, touch me, heal me. That I don't remember the name of the song, but I was looking for it, because that's what we come here with, huh? See me, feel me. Anyway, he's got a high pitch. I'm kind of struggling with that. Touch me, heal me. If I was yelling when I was on my bike, I was able to do it earlier. I went to a food bank. Here, I forgot. I was going to the gym and I remembered they had a food bank. Like, oh, cool. I can go there, go a little bit further. But it's see me, feel. It was on the Who's Greatest Hits because I used to have it on cassette, and I know they remastered it. Huh?
No, I've got to think about it. I'll get it. It'll take me a minute to scroll through my mental library of Who songs.
You got them all locked in up top. So
I got a
Yannick,
picture of Roger Daltrey from the Who, by the way, for anybody who wants to see one.
say that again.
I've got a picture of me and Roger Daltrey from the Who together. Anytime you want to see it, man, that's one of my pride and joy pictures. I'm like, yeah, that's me and freaking Roger Daltrey.
You got it by you. Go grab it and bring it onto the class here, man.
Can I post in chat?
Maybe next time, if you can't find it now, it's it might be.
So I want to respond to a couple of things.
Georgia says no.
Georgia says no.
I don't care what Georgia says.
You be nice to my girl.
Oh, I love your girl. She's the only cat I'm allowed to like.
All right. So there's a couple of things you said there, Yannick, that I want to speak to. One was in the reference to, I guess, the collective saying that women aren't women until they have a child. Is that, am I saying that correctly? Is that what you had behind that?
Well, I mean that's born out of suffering, in the way the structure of the fallen world, so that's born out of suffering. If you look at the Bible, basically, and even the what you call it, the I can't remember what its name, but like so the woman's, or in fact, it would have been a child in our culture, because they were married off like 13, 14, somewhere in that range. But the father had to earn enough to provide a I'm sorry, it's the other way around, I think, is that they were kind of like purchased by the father. I can't remember now, but like there was a like monetary exchange, but I like basically the women would wind up in Israel would be wind if they didn't weren't married, it wouldn't be like what we think of as an old maid who's, you know, sitting on disability somewhere, but they'd be turned into prostitutes or, you know, I guess outcasts, and you know that they were a desert hearted people in a desert hearted land.
I
Well,
put that in chat, by the way.
it actually went only to me.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't know if I never shifted that, so that may be the reason
Oh,
why.
it was a great.
I will add it to. I'll go ahead and know what is going on here.
Pull it up in on your computer if you have a computer, right? You can probably maybe that's hard to do. Show your screen.
I'm
Actually,
trying.
I
I'm trying to add it to.
Just a picture. Sorry.
yeah.
It is, man, but
But
that doesn't even look like you. That's
That
that's
was a lot of
young
years
John,
ago.
man.
a lot of years.
Yeah, man. I was real quick story about that. I was playing a gig at the Hogshead in Memphis on Beale Street, and that night I saw the gig was over at 8 and 9 o'clock. Roger Daltrey and Eric Clapton were playing. Like, there's no way I'm going to miss Eric Clapton and Roger Daltrey together. So I got tickets and went over there, and apparently that night I threw a party because I threw a party, and the next day, it's like I'm drinking a mimosa at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon in my hotel, and I see Roger Daltrey checking out, and dude's like, "Hey, you want to go look? It's Roger Daltrey." I'm like, "Holy shit!" So I run over there and I meet Roger Daltrey, and I'm like trying to take his picture, and like, I got just 20 seconds to talk to a real rock star, and I'm trying to think of something cool to say, right? So I'm like, I'm like, "Hey, Roger, can I take your picture?" He's like, "Yeah." So I get my phone out, I'm like getting ready. He goes, "Hey, Mike, you want to be in it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." So I handed the phone to his manager, and I've got my arm around Roger, and I go, "Hey, Roger, man, do you still get the same thrill on stage now that you did 30 years ago at The Who?" And without missing a beat, he looks at me and goes, "Yeah, mate, that's why I do it." I feel like Wayne's World. I'm like, "I'm not worthy." That was such a rock star answer. I was like, "Oh, man, that's so awesome." So yeah, that's my
what,
Roger story.
what did he say? What was the question you asked him?
Oh, I
missed
said,
it.
"Hey, do you still get the same thrill on stage now that you did
Oh,
30
great.
years ago with Who?" And he just, without missing a beat, he gives me this look. He goes, "Yeah, mate, that's why I did it." I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "Dude, that's so
Why are
rock
you
star."
even asking this question, man? Why are you even?
Yeah, I know, right? Like I'm an idiot, and but I felt like one too, man. I was so.
All right, I was going to touch base on that whole thing made me lose track on where I was going with the Yannick thing. I was
Sorry.
going to mention. No, it's all good. Where I got to see a young John and talk about the Who for a minute. Sophia,
So
go ahead.
I don't know, may I offer you something, Yannick? Because may I offer you something? Just
if you think you can top the spirit, yeah.
well, it's just because I do hear like a recurring theme about how you decided not to have kids because of like all the suffering in the world, and I just
No, that wasn't why I decided that. That it was I didn't want to cause suffering, and I never showed up as vulnerable enough because I was too much in the in the word games of the toxic masculine, like it's all in the head, like Tony Robbins says, it in the head you're dead. I didn't know that before, but it is true. So like this, it goes back to this 18-inch journey between the head and the heart, because they're and the ancient of ways. I mean, we were raised in such a toxic culture. Everything is toxic in this culture. So that the ideas that people have about what's feminine and what's masculine, you might as well consider that I need to be able to toss those out the window, and consider anything that the spirit will bring to me. And again, if something's helpful at this point, that doesn't mean that there's not another layer below that. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's a shallow pan, this living dirt that we're basically, it's under this asphalt right here. It doesn't support life this way.
Well, if I just may say, there was a point in my life where I didn't want to have kids. Like, I just kept saying, I don't want to have kids. I don't want kids because I don't want to contribute to more suffering in the world. And I don't want them to suffer and all that jazz, because I was going through some stuff where I was also looking at some scenarios, maybe some like bad news and things that are happening in the world, like around my 20s. I was getting very frustrated and I was kind of on a lower vibrational scale though, when I was getting frustrated how the world was. And like, there's all this suffering around the world, and I kept focusing on all the suffering, people in Africa, people in all these third world countries, even people in the homeless, or, New York City, a lot of homeless. And I just kept focusing on the suffering. And then one day I just read this book, the name of the book is Peace Program. And she talked about like
Peace Pilgrim. Oh yeah, I saw it at one of the book libraries at like the Presbyterian church over by where I used to live. But I heard someone talk about it, but like I've been so inundated and so living with words. Like I spend hours and days without words speaking. I go to the place below words, and that's where you really need to be able to track what's going on. Like the audience of one is here's your inner voice. And anyway,
yeah, we say
so
it's
I can't read
the words.
I cannot read
those words.
those books, and I don't need it. I don't want it. I appreciate it, but I don't want to have kids because this is not the time for that for me. Because it's, hey, why should I bring that desire to the world that, I just want to take care of me. Like Prince of Peace is, I got to find peace within. I got to stay in peace. And one of the things that they do in the village that, like that they do basically something like predominantly a Daniel fast, as far as I know, which is the micronutrients in fiber. There are the gut that the gut bacteria produce so many micronutrients. The ones that digest fiber, if you're on the spiritual quest, like, hey, that is essential. Like, and it's essential to end suffering. Because the way our food system is horrible. And and it translates from one to the other. If we eat the suffering mammals, that they have feelings too, just like us.
I guess my
so
point
Yannick,
was,
hold on one second, Yannick. I'm interested in that conversation at some point in time, because I'm actually, this morning what I did was got up and sprayed microbes all through our greenhouse and stuff. So which helps with efficiency in plants. So I love that.
The soil.
Here, let's let Sophia
broke up.
Let's let Sophia finish her point real quick.
No, I guess my whole thing is that because I was an extreme empath and I felt people's pain, I had a shift at one point to think, well, why am I doing that? Why am I feeling people's pain? I'm not being of service to those people. I'm actually doing them a disservice by not being in my light, right? So, and then when Peace Pilgrim said being the positive consciousness or contributing to the positive consciousness of the world is, shining your light as bright as you can, rather than contributing to the negative consciousness of the world where you're feeling other people's pain, you're doing them a disservice. So, that was my whole point. I guess that was my point, is that because I also had a friend who recently even focused on people in Africa. I said, well, just send them light. That's the best thing you could do, is send them light. You can't do anything for those people in Africa. You can't do anything for sometimes a homeless person, but you can send them light. You can be a lighthouse. You can grow your light even brighter. you know, and that is the best thing because it goes into the ether and they will benefit from that. At some point in time, they will benefit from your light becoming bigger and stronger and brighter.
Oh, absolutely. You're entirely right. You know, but I I want to flip the switch and stop the world system, you know, from, you know, I mean, it's inevitable. Like I'm assuming that you're talking about the famines 40 years ago. The spirit, you know, it's not uncommon. It's not on the basically the We Are the World movement happened in 1983, and now 2023, 40 years later. Um, and 40 has a whole another meaning, is Putin's famine.
We still having issues.
Yeah, I mean I've had so many revelations, and you know there's so much that you know needs to spark, and you know like
The first one, it starts with you.
oh absolutely, and it starts with becoming one with the creator, but you know the I mean that goes back to confessing our sins. And you know, I mean, I was confessing sins to an old tree but you know, today trying that because I heard that that's what the natives would do. They'd spend time with the tree, and I'm homeless and I live under a big tree, and okay, and are surrounded by mosquitoes, but you know, I was uh it's chosen because I'm not here to lay my life down for a paycheck. That's idolatry. In the end of the day, money is not even real. I just need to take care of myself, and you know, I'm good with that.
And that's beautiful that you have that awareness that's the space that you have chosen, you know. So to
Well,
have
it's
that
temporary.
awareness and not, you know, for you feel like you're perpetuating suffering onto another when you would not, when you feel like you're not in the best position to help end that at this moment with a child, you know. So here we're going to go to Sarah. We got 3 minutes left. Appreciate this conversation. This has been beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I just wanted to speak on the divine feminine again and the masculine. The reason why it's called divine is because you're calling in the divine. And the reason why it's wounded is because you're not seeking the divine, right? And so I think that has a really big play on all of it. And so the masculine brings in strength and all of those things to the feminine, but the feminine brings in vulnerability and, you know, emotions. And if they're over pendulated in any way, you're going to get a reaction. Just like if two, you know, like wheels were to crank, you're going to get friction in between them if they're not, you know, lubed up together properly. You're going to get friction. So it's where's your direction and what is first on your list? Well, both of them speak of the divine first, divine feminine, divine masculine. So you have to seek the kingdom first. That's what I believe, and that's when that comes to fruition.
That was helpful to me, Sarah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely, it's good to hear the truth, um, you know, spoken from an other. I mean, you know, you have your own. You are we're created for a relationship, and you know it's so challenging to be in a group on Zoom. You know, and anyway, but at least we're narrowing it down. And yeah, I mean, I pendulate between that hermit when I'm stuck in my head, and you know, hey, you know, I've been studying the spirit, you know, and a lot of things. I've been unpacking stuff for on and off for decades. Um, and yeah, I mean, the ancient of ways is just, yeah, hey, I've been tracking myself. You know, I know how to track. I've tracked panthers and roared at panthers multiple occasions in the saw palmetto at dusk and dark, in the dark with just a little headlamp. You know, and a few days later, I'm out tracking cougars in Colorado. But anyway, the cats.
No, what do you do when you catch one? That's what I want to know. You're tracking them, but then what?
I'm not technically tracking them. I'm just looking for tracks because, you know, I'm not that good of a tracker to be able to follow their tracks. And I don't want to get all cut up in, you know, in the, you know, sagebrush and whatnot. So going to places where I find, you know, where the,
You
where the,
follow God and then that'll be there.
Roar!
Yep.
I want to hear your cougar roar, man.
Meow.
I cannot, I don't know a cougar, but the panther sounds like something out of hell, a feminine version of something out of hell, you know, and yeah,
Toxic feminine.
there were, well, no, it's far more, you know,
It
like
sounds
nothing,
like a kitten
like,
compared to the toxic feminine.
otherworldly,
Meow.
otherworldly is the best I could say. And, you know, to be honest, you know, I was walking in the spirit, you know, I would go on these prayer walks for like 5 hours and maybe go 5 miles and stop and, you know, and praying like prayer walks. I mean, it was like, because I had so much pain and tension that I was unraveling. My spine was curved to the right. And I think I shared with you like 15 years ago, and it still have the tension, and it's all related to, you know, not having the covering of love, you know, and that's a whole nother story I could unpack. But
So you don't want to try and roar for us?
I want it. Come on, Yannick.
Just
For
one
me,
roar.
buddy.
Finish
I
the
would
session
hurt
with a
your
roar?
ears.
Do the roar.
And
Do the roar.
We'll turn
Do
down the
the roar.
volume.
I can't roar like a panther, but you know, I think
Well, then roar like you.
definitely, I have been,
We want the
my
Yannick roar.
awareness, my
Do the roar.
To the roar.
I'm going
We
on
should
mute.
all we should all take a turn doing roars.
You want me to do it for you, Yannick?
Oh, I can't wait for this.
Really good one.
Oh.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting
Down,
that either.
down, Karen. Karen, get down.
One more animal thing is this morning I found a baby bird and I put it in a basket and its mom and dad were swooping down, like flying directly at me, man. I took a palm leaf and was using it to guard myself from these two little birds.
Oh, you're a manly man, Steven.
Man, they were flying right at me. Like I had no idea how they were missing me. I was just seeing them come right. Yeah.
Listen, if we're ever in a survival situation, I'm carrying the gun, all right?
All right, perfect. I'm fine with that.
Hey, I got my
At
pink.
least it wasn't a panther.
I got my Pink Panther. Actually, I think I'd have to YouTube it, but like that, the I was actually Pink Panther came up with in my mind the other day of like, and I
That was my favorite as a kid. I loved Pink
Yeah, I
Panther.
love Pink Panther too.
How's the song go?
I used to be able to play that.
That right?
Right.
Yeah.
But then it was spoiled by the fiberglass insulation company because they took it.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that, but yeah, that was the thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we got to go into this last little theme song with music there. We sung something today.
Maybe you can take the melody line from the Pink Panther song or something.
That might be it.
Or like slightly different.
Yeah, or balance. I think it all has to do with balance.
All right, there we go.
I'm gonna make
we're-
a song about balance. It's the divine feminine and masculine.
Because we're supposed to be the covering of love. You like woman. The woman is the covering of
First
love.
word on my
for
thing is
her
balance.
child.
Oh, an angel.
Whoa,
You're
what?
the covering of love for your child, whether or not the man is anywhere near you or not, especially when you're in the body. So I mean, the whole picture points to it points essentially to the spirit.
Well,
I
I hope you
appreciate-
get covered in love today, Yannick.
Yeah, me too.
I hope yes.
Yeah.
That's way better than cougar
I hope
poop.
you all do. I love you all.
Cougar poop. Hey, I haven't stepped in cougar poop, but I'm not a scatologist, but you know,
Scatologist.
John,
Wait,
Well
is that
done,
John
is
Cougar.
that is
might
that a
treat me
scientist
like
that
that,
examines
or
poop?
Kirk might treat me like
Yeah,
that,
it
a
is. That's
scatologist.
good.
Hey, want to see my poop collection?
I did not expect to hear scat used today in a sentence at all. So
Hey,
thank
that's
you for
okay
that.
because
I
Got one
received
off the
that.
checklist with John.
I poop in a bag rather than
Mark it off.
in a hole in the ground.
Hey, Steve, you should write that in your notes, like the
I,
Yeah, put scat down in your notes, man.
yeah.
all right, I got it.
Kitty cat. Kitty scat.
I'm
All
gonna
right, I love you
scatter y'all
guys.
with my big gun. I'm gonna scatter y'all. I'm gonna press that button and trigger y'all goodbye.
All
All right.
right,
Good.
Yannick, love you, man. Love you, John.
Love you guys.
See you guys.
See you
See
soon.
you, Sarah, and see you a little bit in an hour or so.
Yep.
See you in a little bit. Bye, guys.
Hey,
Love
Sounds
you.
Steven.
good.
Hey,
Bye.
Steven, you
Uh,
got a minute
Yeah, I got a
on
minute.
that
I'll stick on, brother.
on that? You said you wanted to do that conversation. And I don't. It was you were talking about the microbes.
Yeah, we can do that real quick. It's really I love diving into that stuff just because it's to me it's the intersection of life and death and taking death into life and
Yo, yeah, it's absolutely like the plants can't go anywhere. They're stuck. At least animals can run. Animals can run away from us, right? And it depends on what our awareness is. That they're sensitive enough to know that the awareness is just like. Have you ever looked at a woman from across the room or from a distance and they look right at you? That's an animal consciousness.
that's animal
But
consciousness.
well, we are animals, so it's like the spirit that moves through all things, I believe, is what
Gotcha.
you could call it. Because and like looking at someone right in the eyes is totally different than, and I don't like to look at the phone, and that's just my
And technically,
my
we're
deal.
not really you can never look at each other's eyes when you're doing this either. Because
Right.
for you to see my eyes, I got to look in the camera, which is not looking at your eyes,
Yeah, and it doesn't really provide the light, like, I mean, and then stepping into your space. I mean, the comfort level of, hey, I'm actually, I should be way out here if we're beyond my arm length if we're in person, and then come closer as needed,
Right. Because of the
as
aura and the energetical.
yeah, as natural, what would naturally flow, and
Right.
I mean, I'm totally socially, I guess I'm socially inept, and like, in a lot of regards, because nothing was modeled for me, and I got hell in a handbasket for my childhood, in so many regards. But anyway, yeah. So we were talking about, I was talking about the
Bacteria, microbes.
yeah. Well, that's what you brought up. But the plants can't run away, and so that's their fate. And in the Old Testament, they didn't eat meat. And now, basically, if you were to turn back the pages of time, when when humanity arrived, some say obviously it was like the people that try and take everything literally. They'll never get that. They'll never get it right. They say that, okay, when Adam is, Adam was kicked out of the garden, and Adam is the divine masculine who walked in union with God, one with God, like Jesus. And then Eve is the feminine, is the fallen feminine, and it's a wrestling match, because what's ruling and reigning over us? Is it the one that's looking at God? And what is our role here? I mean, we're supposed to be the caretakers and not just take. but we're supposed to be the caretakers of the earth, not the destroyers of it. And, you know, like, hey, this is suburgatory in my mind. That's what I call it.
I like
Uh,
that word, man. Suburgatory.
yeah. Suburga.
Suburgatory. All right, I dig
So
that,
it's
man.
suburb and purgatory.
Yeah, and it's just a
And
concrete. It's not quite a concrete jungle, but it's all.
it's
Not.
asphalt now.
It's not
Yeah.
natural.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't support life. I mean, people are so divided in America. It's ridiculous. And they've become even more so as the whips of their masters have gone faster and faster and faster over the last. I mean, how old are you?
43.
Oh shit! I didn't think you were that old. Sorry, I underestimated you. I just turned 50, so like I just want to move around, and you know I would love to just work in the garden, and I don't know. Actually, I wanted to ask, and I know Paul and John were talking about shipping all his cabinet making equipment to the village. Did that ever occur?
It hasn't occurred.
Is it
I
is it
know
in the
Paul.
works?
I don't know. I don't know where that stands. I haven't heard anything
Oh,
of
sorry,
it
you broke
lately.
up.
I haven't heard anything of it lately, so
Because
I don't know. And I know Paul is coming down here at the
I'm
end of
staying
this month.
right. I'm staying with the people that I'm staying with. You know, he's like the guy. He's like an 80-year-old balloon maker, and he's been doing like tents, like the agriculture. Well, like the you know the a lot of those.
Like
Um,
greenhouses.
well, not necessarily, but they have lots of fabric. They've got all kinds of military grade fabric, like you know, like there's a roll of the things that they made like 20 years ago. They made for one
Kevlar.
particular one all kinds of stuff. Not Kevlar that I've seen, but and they've got all kinds of industrial sewing machines. I know we have a lot of women that know how to sew, but and you know, and then the guy who's my friend who's an artist, he literally he's been he worked with he worked in like the Henson for like the Hensons, you know, Jim Henson, the Muppets. So he's a puppeteer, and he's done like sorry, he's done like yeah a lot of artistic kite stuff, and he's all up in that. They've got like he's like 20 grand, and will sell everything, all these industrial sewing machines and fabric, and he'll even be able you know set you up with a tent. Like man, it'd be so awesome to have a tent, and you know get the young people. If you need we need to have young people, because they don't want this life. They want to live like essentially like a modern version of the you know the 60s where they had communes and stuff, but like get them to you know go and do the work and set up the gardens in advance of the structures. I mean, this guy, yeah, he grew up in a geodesic dome, and he I'm probably dropping too much information. He's so paranoid because of he's an artist, and he's always seen kind of the way the world's going. But like if you want um like structures that you just blow up the columns with air, you can do it. You know, or you know, you know, like just building, you know, simple like setups that can be reproduced and even possibly, you know, sent out to others, you know, other villages, you know, that for the you know for the cruise. I mean, like, hey, you know, it's like the more you can do in advance, and you know, not with, and you know, hey, I think I'm 50. I want to move around. I want to work my body. I don't want to live. I mean, I'm riding my bike all over the place, but that's not working my entire body, and I don't have my shoes that have clips. You know, it's and I want to be able to surf too, then to work out the knots in my back. But you know, that's a secondary because like, yeah, I mean, I've had this idea that John had decades ago. I had the guy who was Walt Disney's pick for to develop Celebration for the which was the you know how Celebration is, right? It was Walt Disney's vision for the basically the international village for student housing, and then you know that would be the center, and like it's community oriented, and then you know like with with you know communal space, you know, rather than just, oh well, the streets are the roads are the communal space in America. And then anyway, so he after he passed, the CEO for Disney who made like three, you know, back in I don't know when it was in the 80s, early 80s, he was getting like 300 something $million in stock options in 1 year. Like so he sacrificed the idea to the marketplace to build you know basically Newtown Center, you know, like where people it was so far out people had to drive forever, and then you know it's people from Brazil and South America parking money there. I sat with a guy who I didn't speak any Brazilian, but I had a Brazilian girlfriend, and she knew the guy. He shows me a picture of the president of Brazil and him, you know, and like in soccer uniform. And this guy can't play soccer. He's like 60 something years old. I mean, he's uh, in bad shape, but he owns like the like a huge, all kinds of big conglomerates in Brazil. And like, oh, it's kind of interesting. You know, they're parking money over here. But anyway, I had that idea to build basically communities that, you know, like villages in in France. And I've had a little bit of exposure to that, or other countries in Europe, you know, that hey, you had a you your basic needs were kind of met right there. Um, you know, I had a you know an example that uh, I was in my aunt my mother's cousins were adopted because their parents were killed in the war, and my mother was born in 1945 in France, 60 miles east of Switzerland, and her cousin, you know, who grew up as her older sister, lived on the rail line. I think it is the end of the rail line back then that it goes to Charles de Gaulle Airport, or right maybe it's before Charles de Gaulle. I don't remember. Outside of Paris, and you know you had like a like a huge like circle, and people are all walking. You know where the streets, a lot of them have like these big you know circles and space, and you know like there's a bakery, there's a meat butcher, there's a produce, you know, all these different services right there. And I was like, man, that would be awesome. And I actually had his second in charge, Steve Johnson, offered me a job at Vieira, which is a 40,000 acre celery farm. Vieira is like one of the top 10 agribusinesses. And what they're doing is they're they were developing Vieira. It's basically on it's east of Orlando, west of Cocoa and Satellite Beach, uh, and they were building. It's like, but it's all shopping malls and subdivisions. The plans were already set. I'm like, I don't want to just do all this busy work, chasing all this paper to get, you know, because they're like basically land developers, and like, okay, you got to chase the fucking people with the. But I would have been number two there because I have a real estate master's in real estate, master's in I mean undergraduate in finance. Unfortunately, practicality, I didn't want to do. Those people were so far from that. You know, it's like the whole market, and that's just the thing is the market is idolatrous, and laying down your life for the market is that, and people don't want that. They know it's. I mean,
Where
hey,
it's now.
anyway, I'm rambling. I could go on and on. I wish I could remember even the scripture I was looking at today. It's or was it last night? I think it was last night. Paul, it was last night talking about born into bondage, and literally it's like the Greek word is like, I'm gonna totally botch it, but it starts with a P. It's like maybe PER or something. I think it has an S in it, but it's like literally ruined, and and it's so powerful. It's like that's what happens to people who are born into this world, who, so we're divided, and that goes back to Jesus, because we're shattered hearts. And in my experience, you can use those, even if we don't intend to, because I did what was right in my own eyes, but love brought me back and showed me where, and this is not somebody else, love finding it on the inside after I cleared away so many layers, that, hey, putting me face to face, but it's like a riddle. So the words would be like something that I had to figure out, like, but I knew I was exposed. I knew I was guilty. I just couldn't say how. And,
I
that's,
feel that, man. I've had that where I haven't had the words for those feelings as well.
well, it wasn't I had to find the feelings, and, even being guilty is, I mean, a lot of people, because I've experienced the victim, the villain, and the hero myself, but we're all victims of being born into a world at war, basically. The scriptures tell us, and it's ruled by basically the ruler of the dirt, or the physical realm, which is Satan, which is double-minded.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to even us. Like, I could tell you, I have so much more peace, in, well, Jesus is the Prince of Peace, and he's supposed to be the covering. Jesus is not necessarily a man, but a consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But what are all these layers? Hey, like, and that goes back to Adam, like, the Adam and Eve, they ate from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and they covered themselves with fig leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is we got multiple fig leaves, and it becomes almost like a amalgamation, which I was looking online. I have to go dig out my encyclopedia. I have an unabridged dictionary from like 20 years ago, and it's a cheap one, but like the words keep changing. Like, they keep updating the words, like, because people are becoming dumber and dumber and dumber,
Right.
and have a smaller and smaller and smaller vocabulary. But amalgamation is like the picture, the um the like the Cosmopolitans, magazines, the Vogue or whatever, where they have these really stiff, glossy pages.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the stiff, glossy facade I'm presenting, which Greek is persona. And I think I've got some notes on that somewhere. It's like the ego is presenting the persona. It's wearing a mask, and, like, I haven't been wearing it at times when I'm out. Like the other 2 days ago, I think it was, I was at the Asian market I like, and I asked about this woman. They have like these ginseng shots, which I was turned on to in Korea, and they were out, but I was like, man, that looks really good. It was in a quart container, and anyway, it was like 2 or 3 o'clock, and I asked about it, and she gave it to me, and it was like fermented tomatoes and oyster mushrooms, another mushroom, and green scallions, and like, I'm gonna go back there today, hopefully, and ask her how she made it, because it didn't taste fermented. It didn't taste like vinegar, but it was like it was, and it didn't taste like wine, which is like how the Peruvians do it. But it was so good, and like, yeah, it's not cooked, so it holds the stuff. And anyway, like
You
what
just
we eat
reminded me.
is,
I make kombucha.
I know, I heard, I love that.
Yeah, man. So
I
I
love
actually have the
kombucha.
bottle. I have 8 2-gallon jugs of it. It's like when you drink it, man, you feel the life hitting your cells. It's
Exactly. It's because it's so fresh.
that
Yeah, I
well,
mean,
it's living. It's
yeah,
living
that's what I
bacteria.
mean.
So that
That's
goes
what I
into
meant to say.
it goes into the gut. But what I also like to do is mix it with fresh squeezed oranges and also coconut water. Between those 3 ingredients, man, like I just feel like uplifted. When I'm in a nice flow of it and have it for breakfast, it's like it takes care of me for the first couple hours of the day. It's just so filling and so like I don't know, just you feel the life, like you feel your cellular life. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's nice to get a burst of life. Like I'm a juvenile diabetic, so I have glucose tablets, and sometimes even if I don't need to raise my sugar, I'll take, especially like in the morning. I did it this morning. I'll just take a glucose tablet and break it in half and put the half on in the front of my mouth, because that's where your body absorbs it like fastest, and just break it up, because glucose is like the simplest, most fast. It's the sugar that your body stores inside, it
Uh-huh.
uses, so everything gets converted to that, as far as not everything, but 50% of the protein, they say. And I think that could vary, but 10% of the fat, and then 90%, I'm sorry, 100% of the carbohydrates, that's not fiber.
Uh-huh.
And that's why a high fiber diet is so awesome for you, and it opens your eyes spiritually. I mean, that's the Daniel fast.
So
Daniel
that's
was
what
a
I didn't
was a
catch earlier on. What you were referencing there, and that's what you're talking about is a high fiber diet. All right, I heard you talking about fiber earlier on in regards to that, and I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. If you
I
look
only
at,
have a couple more minutes, man, and then I'm running to lunch.
right, if you look at Daniel, he the like him and I think 3 others were only eating vegetables when they were in Babylon, and I don't remember if it was the first or second Babylon, and I don't remember the things that the Spirit pointed out to me, like Spirit's pointed out to me so much of the scriptures, like, and I just can't, because I don't have anyone to share anything with. I don't, it's like, we'll come back at some point.
It's there all the time. You have
Yeah,
it in
I
your
know,
cellular
but
memory now
I
too.
have to have a reason. I have to have a like almost like a burning desire. Like Joan of Arc had a burning desire to free France. Of course, it didn't happen until um, the French Revolution, but she had a spiritual awakening, and unfortunately she felt she had to take up the sword,
Mm.
which, and I don't remember the rest. I don't really know the rest of the story, because I heard it so many years ago. And but like opening your eyes to the spirit of love is wild, but most people don't live there, dwell there, and the truth which sets people free, like, is most people don't want. It's scary. Because it's convicting.
It
It is
is.
convicting, like you said.
You can't
And most
unsee
people,
it.
like, they're like the serpent. Like, I got an automatic snap response to that. Or like, have you ever seen a snapping turtle?
Yeah, I've saved one not too long ago.
Oh, cool. Cool. I was out hiking on it was like an unusually warm day in December, back with my father, so it would have been like before 82. It was probably like seven, I think it was 7. So it would have been 80 probably, or 70. It was probably anyway, it was like 70 degrees that day, and we're out hiking along towards a lake from a stream, and then there's a little side stream, and there was a snapping turtle. He was probably maybe 2 foot. His shell is smaller than that. And he's like sitting there he's outside of this little stream. He's not necessarily in the shade anymore or in the sun anymore, but I guess he had been in the sun, and he was just like his mouth wide open. And like, curious kid, and like, I want to see it. And like, my dad was like kind of warned me. He's like,
Don't put your finger in the mouth.
right. And I didn't even, well, he didn't want me to bother, so he was touched on by some of the native stuff as well. And so, basically I just kind of sheepishly brought like a stick close to him, and he's like close, like testing his spatial awareness. And, he started kind of doing this, like, but the cold-blooded can't, it's got to be like a life or death for this to actually happen. And that's what happens, because everyone's so traumatized living under this stress that people are on over time, just puts them down in that rut of just like trauma.
All reaction.
Exactly. It's a cold-blooded, and the people that are the wolves in sheep's clothing. If you know this, what the Bible, I can't remember what the verse is, but they're blind sheep leading blind sheep, and they're just trying to get theirs in this life.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how to spark this revolution, but it has to happen by surrendering everything. And I'm all there. And anyway, so, and I've got an idea. I've had like an idea for like basically 8 foot, but things that'll fit inside of like a box truck, like an 8x8 truck,
Mm-hmm.
that basically you open up and then fold out, and it's got like your cooking stuff, supplies, and it's got basically a kitchen, and then you got tent kind of folding out, and what have you. And we could all design that and get this thing going, but it's gotta bring the young people, and that's the problem. And it's almost like, Paul was a tent maker. Paul, he wrote half the Testament, and so he was able to provide the covering for the communities, because back then you could just build, especially in those dry arid lands, you could just you didn't have to, there wasn't code enforcement. You just have a community under cover, and they're like, okay, and you have a space around it, you can grow a garden or whatever. And then once the rain season comes, and rain comes, and you spend time under the cover.
And that's kind of what we do
It's
here. We have that similar setup here, and so
anyway.
yes.
I know you got lunch, but again, my friend, because he's got other things that he could do, and like literally, he said you could probably get some what do you call it, work out of him for that, and actually, Jane Henson is really, he's close. He basically led one of her uh, organizations that she had, puppeteering, and she's into. In fact, she paid for him and me and another guy to go to like a native skills gathering, but he couldn't go because the work, the money was so tight. We couldn't go. I could have gone, but he couldn't, so it didn't happen. Anyway, so she's into that stuff too, because like we gotta change this. And I mean, I've got all kinds of, like, I'm sorry, I was playing with sticks, like something that's real. sticks. That is real. And like I have a couple, just a smooth river stone sometimes on your fingers. I mean, you spend a lot of time outside, but I would love to be, you know, well, you know about the Victory Gardens.
No, I don't, man. I'm gonna have to hop off here real quick. Can we catch that?
Look it up on Wikipedia, Victory Gardens.
Victory Gardens. All right, I will
Yeah,
look it
because
up.
we are going to need that soon. And then bring it, and also the temple, the inside the temple in Israel
Mhm.
was painted lush greens, all kinds of greens all over the place.
Beautiful.
But the assholes, I don't know, the assholes in charge, they put the pomegranates on top of the columns, like out of your reach. Sorry, sucker.
All right, brother. I appreciate you, man.
All right.
It was
God
nice
bless
talking
you.
to you.
Thanks.
You have a beautiful
Likewise.
rest of the day.
You do the same. Sorry if I talked your ear off.
It's all good, man. We're learning each other, brother. So it's all good.
Right. I got some
I'd like
lyrics
to
the
hear
other day,
people's.
yesterday.
I'd like to hear people's stories and what makes them them.
I
We're your
gotcha.
inspiration.
Oh yeah.
Brother.
You could look up the rural resettlement agency too. My grandmother worked for them in the Depression.
All right, rural.
Resettlement agency.
All right, appreciate it.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much. I love you.
Love you too, brother.
I
Have a
love what you're
beautiful
doing, and you do the same. Hey, you don't have to say goodbye because my time is not up yet. I'm passing through this life, but I'm going to be here for some time because my work is not finished.
I feel that.
It's actually hasn't just it's barely just begun.
Yeah,
And
I feel
it's
that
all
too,
about
brother.
laying everything down, all these fig leaves.
Right. Creating a new
All right.
foundation from there.
Well, it's not creating. You got to be very careful with your words. The foundation is what was already created, which has
I'll feel into
been
that.
led astray.
I'll feel into that.
All right. All right.
Later, brother.
And God bless. Thank you.
Later, man.
Bye.